Good morning,
Good morning.
sir.
Good morning to you.
All right. So here we are on Rule 8. We'll get as far as we can in this in the next hour and a half, I guess, or something.
Yeah. She has a pretty short chapter, but we'll see where we
Oh,
get.
is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's only, well, doesn't matter. We'll see what we get through. We'll let the natural flow guide us.
Good, yeah. And I had listened to Michael Robbins talking about. I listened to him cover this chapter from the Moria Federation earlier in the week, and he goes into such amazing detail with everything. So if anybody is looking for an even, a very deep perspective, he provides such profound commentary on it all. So, we're coming from wherever we're coming from, right? So. All right, so Rule 8 is the. You want me to do a couple?
Yeah, you get started with Rule 8. We're still talking. This is the second dose, the second rule related to the astral plane. If I'm not mistaken, 7th was the first, right? So, yeah, why don't you get us started?
All right. The Agnosurians respond to the sound. The waters ebb and flow. Let the magician guard himself from drowning at the point where land and water meet. The midway spot, which is neither dry nor wet, must provide the standing place whereon his feet are set. Neither water, land, and air meet. When water, land, and air meet, there is the place for magic to be wrought. Types of astral force and cyclic ebb and flow is what we're going to cover down on. So types of astral force. It would be advisable for the student to read with care the commentary on this rule as given in the treatise on cosmic fire. It will be noted how extremely abstruse it is and how full of almost blind occult information. This should, however, be studied. The word astral plane should also be looked up and a general idea gained as to its nature and its function as the battleground of the senses and as the place from which magic is wrought. The intelligent and constructive desire of the white magician, acting under the instruction of his own soul and therefore occupied with group work, is the motivating power back of all magical phenomena. This magical work is begun in the magician's own life, extends to the world of the astral plane, and from thence, when potent there, can begin to demonstrate on the physical plane and on the higher planes eventually. We shall therefore take a good deal of time over this rule, for it covers the immediate work and activity of the intelligent aspirant. It is the most important in the book from the standpoint of the average student. It cannot be understood where there's no soul contact, nor can the magical force of the soul work out in manifestation upon the plane, a physical plane, until the meaning of its esoteric phrases has been somewhat wrought out in the inner experience of the magician. Most true aspirants are now at the midway spot and can either drown and make no further progress this life, or stand and so hold the ground gained, or become true practicing magicians, efficient in white magic, which is based on love, animated by wisdom, and intelligently applied to forms. We will therefore divide this rule into several parts, the more easily to study it and take them up step by step, so as to grasp their application in the average life of the probationary disciple. and to gain a wise understanding of their wide implications. These three divisions are: 1, the response of the astral elementals and the consequent ebb and flow of the waters; 2, the dangers of the midway spot, its nature and the opportunity it affords; and 3, the place where magic is wrought. We will study now the first point, which is summed up for us in the words: the Agnosurians respond to the sound, the waters ebb and flow. The situation might be stated in the following terse statements. The rules already studied convey the truth about, anent the magician. 1, the soul has communicated with his instrument in the three worlds. And 2, the man on the physical plane recognizes the contact, and the light in the head shines forth, sometimes recognized and sometimes unrecognized by the aspirant. 3, the soul sounds forth its note. A thought form is created in consonance with the united meditation of the soul and the man, his instrument. 4, this thought form, embodying the will of the ego or soul, cooperating with the personality, takes to itself a triple form, constituting of the matter of all three planes and vitalized through the activity and by the emanations from the heart, throat, and ajna centers of the white magician, the soul in conjunction with its instrument. 5, the personality sheets, each with its own individual life, feel they are losing their power, and the battle between the forces of matter and force of the soul is violently renewed. 6, this battle must be fought out on the astral plane and will decide three things. A, whether the soul will in any one life, for some life holds the critical stage, be the dominant factor and the personality from henceforth be the servant of the soul. B, whether the astral plane is no longer the plane of illusion, but can become the field of service. C, whether their man can become an active cooperator with the hierarchy, able to create and to wield mental matter, and so work out the purposes of the universal mind, which are prompted by boundless and infinite love and are the expression of the one life. That's pretty humbling and very deep. The requirement there, the main requirement being that we've had some level of soul contact. And then, it alludes to a more difficult kind of time initially as the waters ebb and flow. And that's where, this battle is fought out. And who's going to win? Does Arjuna, turn his own will over to that of the soul, right? And I guess that's what really determines whether or not we can proceed with it. So let's see what else. I'm sure he's going to get into all that. Oh, I just glanced down and I saw.
Right. It's all good.
So this is this is great. So this is the crux of the entire situation. When the man has mastered the forces opposed to him, he is ready for the second initiation, which marks the release of the soul from the prison of the astral body. Henceforth, the soul will use the astral body and mold desire into line with divine purpose. It is of value for the student to know where he stands and what his particular problem is. The average man is learning to control the body, learning the control of the physical body and the organizing of his physical plane life. The student on the probationary path is learning a similar lesson in relation to his astral body, its focus, its desires, and its work. The student on the path of accepted discipleship has to demonstrate this control and begin to discipline the mind nature and so function consciously in the mental body. The work of the initiate and the adept grows out of these achievements, and they need not be dealt with here. The battle is spread over quite a series of lives, but in some one life, it becomes critical. The final stand is made, and Arjuna triumphs in the fight, but only by letting Krishna assume the reins of control, by learning mind control, and by the revelation of the form of God, by distinguishing between the soul and the form, and by a vision of the perfection of the glory which can radiate from the forms indwelt by God. He learns to choose the way of light and to see his form and all forms as custodians of the light. So he buckles down to the work of making the astral body simply a reflector of that light, and by the quelling of desire through the subjugation of the Agnosurians, who constitute his astral body and are the living substance of the astral plane, he learns to function as an adept on that plane, to pierce through its illusion and to see life true. Speaking symbolically, the substance of the astral plane is animated by three types of divine force, which when brought together produce the great illusion. These are, one second. Sorry, man. There was a spider. I must have been in when I opened the window. Speaking symbolically, the substance of the astral plane is animated by three types of divine force, which when brought together produce the great illusion. These are, first, the force of selfish desire. This involutionary energy plays a big part in bringing about evolution, for selfishness is the nursery of infant souls. Hence, the aspirant refuses to be held by it. Boy, isn't that awesome?
Very much so.
It adds such a great perspective to the purpose of selfishness and what we're looking at, and when we see it happening in ourselves and others. Really, it brings about, that process brings about the evolution. It's unbelievable. Second, the force of fear. So we got selfishness first, and second, the force of fear. This is the product of ignorance, and in its initial stages, it is not the product of wrong thinking. It is basically instinctual and is found dominating in the non-mental animal kingdom as well as in the human kingdom. But in the human kingdom, its power is increased potently through the powers of the mind and through memory of past pain and grievance, and through anticipation of those we foresee. The power of fear is enormously aggravated by the thought form we ourselves have built of our own individual fears and phobias. This thought form grows in power as we pay attention to it, for energy follows thought till we become dominated by it. Second-rate people are peculiarly a prey to this. For the majority of them, it constitutes the dweller on the threshold, just as ambition and love of power, backed by frantic desire and unscrupulousness, form the dweller for the first-rate types. The crystallized thought form of an intellectual achievement for selfish ends and the use of knowledge for personality objectives stands before the portal of the path in the case of the third-rate person, and unless broken up and destroyed, will dominate him and turn him into a black magician. So we're dealing with selfish desire so far and fear. You oft have been told that fear is an illusion, yet this statement does not help. It is a generalization that one can admit, yet which remains profoundly difficult to apply individually. The fear to which aspirants are subject, note the mode of wording this, are seldom of selfish nature, except insofar as suffering has caused them to recoil from a further continuation of untoward happenings. Their fears are wrapped in seeming love around their loved ones. Yet should each disciple ask himself a most practical question: how many of the torturing hours have been expended on realities and on tangible happenings, and how many on illusory premonitions and on doubts and questionings based on that which has never happened? Yeah, man, that's the recognition of this whole thing that kind of can help us get past it, I believe. I would like to point out to my brothers that they need to do two things: to meditate on truth in daily life, using the concept of truth practiced and lived by as their seed thought and meditation. To this end, I would suggest that they memorize and use at all times, when swept by illusory fears and needless foreboding, the following formula of prayer: let reality govern my every thought, and truth be the master of my life. Let each say this to himself as constantly as need requires, forcing his mind to focus attention upon the significance of these spoken words. So, early on in my seeking, and when I did the lower course study for the University of Metaphysics, one of the very first things they teach are positive affirmations. And I followed along with the program really pretty, I gave myself to the program and I said, I'm going to do this. And, you create your own positive affirmations, or you can use the ones that they have. Now, this is such a great kind of, I don't want to say mantra, but an affirmation to use for us. So DK is, in fact, kind of replacing some of those that are out there with probably, I would say, more powerful one, certainly, because where it comes from. But let reality govern my every thought, and truth be the master of my life. You can repeat these things anytime you start to see your mind start wandering off, and maybe nervous reactions to things or something. You know what I mean? Like, as soon as you're, if you're following your emotions and you start to see them wandering, you can, or your thoughts, you can use this and get yourself back on track pretty quickly. I know that this is true, and it's particularly interesting in the beginning when there's a lot of negativity still dwelling around in the mind, and you can replace that negativity with positivity, and that's what this is. It seems that this would be doing. I would suggest also sound common sense and the cultivation of an attitude of mind which refuses to permit time for illusory fears to grow. Fear is the main obstacle frequently to a very vital step forward which could be taken in this life, but may have to be delayed to another if due opportunity is not taken and the will nature powerfully excites. And the will nature powerfully excited. The first-rate aspirant who fails to overcome his dweller may become a destroyer of souls, as it is called, and be condemned until he learns his lessons to work in the forces of matter and with the forms which hold all souls in prison. This is the occult significance of the misunderstood words death and destruction, Of this type, the devil is the great prototype. The second ray aspirant who builds his dweller and permits it steady and increasing control becomes a deluder of souls. He is the true Antichrist, and through false teaching and the working of so-called miracles, through hypnotism and mass suggestion, he draws a veil over the world and forces men to walk in the great illusion. It is interesting to note that the work of the devil, the imprisoner of souls, is beginning to lose its power. For the race is on the verge of understanding that true death is immersion in form, and that matter is but a part of the divine whole. The thought form of this dweller on the threshold, which humanity has built for millions of years, is on the verge of destruction. But the work of the Antichrist is only rising now to its height, and the delusion of riches, of possession, of false teachings will increasingly hold sway, but the term of delusion will be shorter than the term of destruction, for all these factors function under their own cycles and have their own ebb and flow. The third ray person, who also fails to shatter his dweller, becomes what is called a manipulator of souls, and uses the mind to destroy the real and to put a veil between the man and reality. It must be remembered that none of these names and these activities refer to the soul on its own plane, but only to human souls incarnation on the physical plane. This must be stressed, for on its own plane, the souls of all men stand free from illusion, and neither can be destroyed, diluted, nor manipulated. It is only the souls in prison who are subject to the activities of the forces of evil, and only for a term. The first group works through governments, through politics, and the interplay between nations, and is relatively small in number. That's pretty key there, I would say, right? The first group works through governments, through politicians, and interplay between nations, and is relatively small in number. The second ray group, who delude and deceive, work through religious agencies, through mass psychology, and the misuse and misapplication of devotion and of the arts. They are largest in number. And we can, you can ponder on, what those might be. Man, that's tough, that's stout. They work through religious agencies, through mass psychology, misuse and misapplication of devotion and of the arts. Music, and that would be a really good one, I think, right? Don't you think, Tom?
Yeah. There's a lot of messaging you can capture in music. So, or I mean, even film. Yeah.
Yeah. Television.
Any of the visual.
News.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
They are largest in number. The third group work primarily through commercial relations in the business world and through the use of money, the concretization of prana, or universal energy, and the outer symbol of the universal flux and flow. These thoughts are suggestive but not vital, dealing as they do with the cosmic tendencies. Right. Thirdly, the force of sex attraction. This is a pull from the physical plane and the swinging back of a type of involutionary energy onto the path of return. Cosmically speaking, it manifests as the attractive force between spirit and matter. Spiritually speaking, it is demonstrated as the activity of the soul as it seeks to draw the lower self into full realization. Physically speaking, it is the urge which tends to unite male and female for the purpose of procreation. When man was purely animal, no sin was involved. When to this urge was added emotional desire, then sin crept in, and the purpose for which the urge manifested was perverted into the satisfaction of desire. Now that the race is more mental, and the force of mind is making itself felt in the human body, an even more serious situation is apparent which can only be safely worked out when the soul assumes control of its triple instrument. Humanity is now at the midway point as this rule shows. It certainly does, even still today, right? Man is swept by selfish desire and by ambition, for all of us have first-rate qualities. He is racked by fear, his own, family fears, national fears, and racial, for all of us swing to the rhythm of the second ray. He is dominated by sex and by money, which is another manifestation of the energy of matter, and hence has a triple problem with which he is well equipped to deal through the medium of his triple vehicle and the triple potencies of his divine soul. Let us close the instruction on that note, well equipped to deal. We can overcome mental inertia and begin to function as souls in command of our environment. The soul is omniscient and omnipotent. Omnipotent. So that was the first section there. And that was in regard to the types of astral forces. All right.
Yeah, it pretty much covers pretty much everything that kind of vies for our attention these days, would you not say?
Yeah.
I mean,
It
it speaks to just about everything that most people seem to be drawn to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's, we got these different energies from these different dweller aspects coming from the different rays. One is the destroyer of souls. We got the second ray is the first ray is the destroyer of souls when it's not, when the dweller is not destroyed. Then we got the deluder of souls. And then we've got the third ray is the manipulator of souls.
So you have the destroyer, the antichrist, and the manipulator. If you can't shatter the dweller. It's heavy.
That is heavy. The delusion of riches, of possession, of false teachings. A false teaching will increasingly hold sway. But there is right now, I would say,
right,
there is a push for freedom happening, and there is many people awakening to at least some or other aspects of this.
Right.
So I think we are starting to see that the third ray and how we're being deceived through maybe it's wrong, maybe it's the first ray. Which one was the one of politics and
I think that was the third ray. The first group works through governments, through politics, and the interplay between nations, and is relatively small in number. The second ray group, okay. And I think it's important to note here too, before we get there, it must be remembered that none of these names and these activities, so where we were talking about, you've got the destroyer, the deluder, aka the antichrist, or the manipulator, if you can't shatter that dweller. It says here that none of these names and these activities refer to the soul on its own plane, but only to the human souls and incarnation on the physical plane. And it must be stressed, for on its own plane, the souls of all men stand free from illusion and neither can be destroyed, deluded, nor manipulated. So it's only these souls imprisoned who are subject to these activities of the forces of evil, and only for a term. So I think that the point there is that in these incarnations, we need to kind of shatter through these, work through these things to free ourselves. I think that's what it's saying.
No, for sure.
To free ourselves of these. I don't know.
And if you know your ray type, you can see But now I'm not saying that I do. I've studied that. I have suspicions as to my own rays. But they're literally just suspicions. But if you
Well,
did, you can see where your issues may lie more or less inside of this too, right?
yeah, I think the
Oh.
important thing to stress is to work it into your awareness, and work through it so that you can dissolve that away and kind of move past these illusory desires, so to speak.
Yeah, and this is the work of an aspirant to accomplish.
Mhm.
Now, think about all those that don't even know that they are aspirants or
Right.
disciples.
Right.
So they're potentially the ones out there doing this work because they were on off track a bit, right?
Right.
Or not off track.
Or letting themselves maintain being off track because they're not aware that some of this stuff that they're engaged in or letting consume them is what's actually dragging them down and holding them down and kind of keeping them from progressing forward, which is the ultimate goal for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so understanding, most don't understand what the astral plane is, right? And we don't really look at it. People don't, they hear that word, right? Because it's been around a long time and it's been used by disciples and initiates in the arts and all sorts of places, music and such. But we don't know what that means. Most people don't know. I don't think most people understand what the astral plane actually is and has and what it does for us, and how it's to be used properly.
Mhm.
Certainly not. If we don't, I mean, we just don't even know, right? And so this is great information to get out there. This is a great gift.
Yeah, and it does open up in here to it'd be good to have an understanding of what the astral plane is as you kind of read through this. So I would imagine there's probably something pretty good that gets in a little bit more nitty-gritty detail. Maybe that Michael Robbins, when you were looking through that.
Oh yeah, he goes incredibly deep.
I certainly don't feel qualified to talk about it. I mean, I could easily look up a definition, but I don't think that's the point. So it might be good
It's
for
just
folks
I mean, it's our desires.
Yeah.
It's really our emotional, desire nature.
Mhm.
And that's what we have to overcome and see through it. And I think, for some, for us who are studying, it's easy to see how these things come into play. Certainly, I can see all of these having come up in my life, as being issues.
Mhm.
I think they're issues common to all of us, really.
Right.
Including sex, right? So it may not be like, for instance, sex is, there's DK's written a lot about sex, so much so that they made a compilation for it of his work, discussions of it.
I don't think it's a print anymore though, right?
I got a copy of it.
Yeah.
And it just really covers down on every aspect, through all the books where he talked about sex, but it's many pages.
Mhm.
And if it wasn't your particular problem in this life, right, it was probably somebody else's, the other person's problem.
Mm.
I mean, or we've all had faced and seen the issues of it, right? And we've kind of all, especially with the way these video, the internet and stuff.
Well, I was just gonna say that it's really put out there these days. It's almost sold as like a status symbol in a way, maybe. And
Oh
it
yeah,
really,
you got
and
all these.
it really shouldn't be. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it says in here that, it's from the physically speaking, it's the years to which unite male and female for the purpose of procreation. So be fruitful and multiply, right?
That's
But that's
you know,
that's the physical plane purpose of it. It mentions in here too that there's a spiritual purpose behind it as well. Or as cosmically speaking, it manifests the attractive force between spirit and matter. Spiritually speaking, is demonstrated as the activity of the soul as it seeks to draw the lower self into full realization. So is that saying that
guaranteed to come up.
it guaranteed to come up, but it serves a purpose because it
It's the
allows,
lower
it
reflection.
enables you to fully realize that lower self, which is very much probably a necessary step in the growth pattern, because what you eventually want to do is move away from the lower self and into the higher self. But
Right.
you can't get there if you skip over, so to speak. So it's not saying that sex is bad.
No.
And actually in the physical realm, it's absolutely necessary, because that's where we are able to be fruitful and multiply so that we can continue on with the plan. But I think it's more about moving past the purely animal state and into the higher being aspects of it. It's
Yeah. And he mentions somewhere where, it's supposed to become a regulated, what is the words that he uses? It should be like a natural occurrence, but
Mhm.
it's cyclic, and regulate. It should be kind of regulated, and a natural appetite. So not a perverted type of thing, and
Right.
it's designed for creation, right? Like that's what we, like you said, we
Right.
need that. But if you look, it's interesting because if you look at psychology, or psychologists and therapists out there now, they're telling you, oh, these are magazines, which would be constitute the arts, I assume, or something to that effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
They promote it like you should be, if you don't do it, then it's not healthy, this and that. And so there is a strange fight going on kind of there too.
Yeah. It even
Between-
touches here. It's tying in that emotional desire aspect into it is where we need to turn away from.
In order to break our dweller, sure, yeah.
Right. Because it says right here, when to this urge, and we're talking a lot about sex, but I think it's important. When to this urge was added emotional desire, then the sin crept in, and the purpose for which urge manifested was perverted into the satisfaction of desire. So sex for the sole purpose of desire,
Right.
as opposed to its
Creation.
functional use in all three of the realms that it touches on.
But again, totally natural.
Totally natural, totally acceptable. But again, it's one of those
in all of our
things,
lives, right?
you can't let it consume you, and it shouldn't be an act of desire.
Well, it says we're dominant. It says right there, he's dominated by sex and money at that point, at this point.
Right.
So that's a significant point of tension to move past, because, men are, we think it's perfectly, okay to walk around, thinking about it all day long. And
Right.
It really does consume it does consume the thoughts until you really have to grab a hold of that and deal on it.
Well, yeah, because as purely physical animal man,
Yeah.
we looked at that as almost like a symbol of status. Yeah, and
Pleasure seeking, and
exactly.
this is Atlantean problems, and that was, they built the astral plane.
Mhm.
Right? So yeah, it all makes perfect sense, and I think it still reflects today. Even though I would say, which I think is a good thing, that some of this stuff is becoming much more apparent now
Mhm.
You know, the political issues, the issues with the arts, you know, the religion is in a struggle.
Mhm.
There's a lot, you know, they want everybody there, and a lot of people have, you know, kind of moved past that to at least see that, you know, there might be some validity, but they don't want to go. Not a lot of people are going to church, you know, so they're kind of like, "Oh, I don't need that." They
Mhm.
recognize that there's a direct connection, and it doesn't have to be. It's not going to be found there necessarily, you know. But I don't want to talk too much, but I know um, Carla had given a good example one time, and she said something like, you know, if you're in battle, you know, you know, you're in combat or something, and you pray, and you're praying straight to God, right? You're praying to God, and then, you know, inevitably you're here. So you know that, you know, you're watched over, or however you want. But you found out, you know, in those types of situations that you have a direct connection. You do not need to go through a third party on the lower plane, you know, physical plane, in order to have a connection with God. And this is very important for kind of moving to the next. That's important to move to the next level, is to realize that we have that personal direct connection, and
Right.
that no other person needs to, you know, control that in anybody. That's a strange thing. And when you know, now as we look at it, right, it becomes kind of a strange thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty packed rule. Because I see we got through the first section, and that might actually be a good natural place to break, since this one is so important, especially for people going through the age of discipleship. But before this last paragraph, I think, is worth another read again. Humanity is now at the midway point, as this rule shows. Man is swept by selfish desire and by ambition. For all of us have these first-rate qualities. He is racked by fear, his own family fears, national fears, and racial. For all of us swing to the rhythm of the second ray. He is dominated by sex and by money, which is another manifestation of the energy of matter, and hence has a triple problem with which he is well equipped to deal through the medium of his triple vehicle and the triple potencies of his divine soul. Let us close the instruction on that note, well equipped to deal. We can overcome mental inertia and begin to function as souls in command of our environment. The soul is omniscient and omnipotent. So again, it's getting into that to really get in touch with and know and understand our higher selves. We have to shed away all these selfish desires for these different manifestations, these modern day manifest your best life, and it's almost always through, you know, the money, the cars, the whatever, physical material goods. How many beautiful women or hot guys can I get with as a symbol of status? And it's all very dangerous. It kind of outlines that right here. Again, not to say that it's not going to be natural to kind of find yourself attaining some of this stuff, but I think the point is that we need to kind of shed it away in terms of it being something that consumes us and drags us down, and the attainment of it through our own selfish desires, wants. I'm not even going to label needs in there, because everyone has to meet their basic needs, but it's saying that this stuff really isn't that which probably meets a basic need. It's thinking you have to attain something much more on the physical and astral realm, as opposed to moving up to that higher self, and building out your mental capacity. If I made any sense there, maybe you can help clarify. But
No, absolutely, man. It's that's the, he says everything. The astral plane is the battleground, and
yeah,
this is what we're, this midway point is what we're dealing on right now.
right,
It's plainly obvious, and but I do have that hope, that there are people that see it now,
hmm,
because the disparage of one aspect or another of those should be enough to wake us up. Like, the fact that you can't turn on the news and listen and find anything that's likely to be
right,
action at this point. It's all denial and deception of different sorts to manipulate us, right? So
right,
maybe it's heavy third rate stuff coming there, as the manipulator, and then we're getting manipulated, diluted, and destroyed from really every angle at this point. So yeah, this is a huge, the
yeah,
waking up process happens here.
right. And I'm
That's what we're
glad
looking at.
exactly. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because I want to backtrack for a quick second, because I said some stuff that could kind of come across as rough to some people out there who might be struggling with some of these physical desires, so to speak. Wasn't intended to be kind of lecturing or anything like that, because everybody's going to work through this stuff, and it's a part of the natural process to have these things arise and have to work through them on an individual basis so that you can overcome. Because really, essentially, what everybody is moving towards is that divine soul aspect for each person. And you can't really get there if you don't work through these things as they come up. Gonna make the mistakes. But what you need to come to the understanding is, and eventually everybody will probably come to a realization at some point. It might not happen in this lifetime. It might take a few. For some, it might. I know it did for me, that, where you believe and you're working to attain all these different things, and it never really gets you to the point of pure bliss and happiness, right? You're just constantly trying to attain more and more and more. But that's not the attainment we should be going. And at some point you come to a realization that the truth is that this isn't what I should be working to attain. It's actually something deeper within. And I think it points it out, it's that divine, getting in touch with your divine soul and growing from there.
You literally just explained the whole premise of the books, Siddhartha.
Oh, did I? And I never read them.
Yeah. It is literally that's the whole premise of the book, because you can get everything that you want and it's not going to make you happy.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's just so many people out there that think that that's the path to happiness, and they will work through that themselves. But at some point you hit a brick wall and you're just like, well, damn, this really isn't making me happy. Okay, I made $1 million. I'm still not happy. There might be something making you feel like you are in a way, but it's not where your divine soul wants you to head. So I thought that would be a good thing to throw
out. And
the
third ray is, the third ray on this is a pretty big deal too,
mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of what you're talking about. But add governments and politics and the interplay between nations. And he even says, and is relatively small in number. So, what does that mean? Are we asking ourselves these questions when we look at the state, of the world and the political world? I mean, they're kind of doing us a favor right now, because it's gone so far overboard and they're infringing on so many rights at this point that I think it's probably doing us a benefit.
Yeah.
I don't.
I-
say,
I think that's actually the first rate group, though, that works through the governments and politics. The first group works through governments and politics and interplay between nations and are relatively small in number. The second rate group, who delude and deceive, work through religious agencies, through mass psychology and the misuse of misapplication of devotion of the arts, and are largest in number. So the second rays delude, deceive through religion, psychology, misuse of devotion, and misapplication of the arts. And they're the largest. So the first is the smallest. Is that what it says? They're the smaller number. It doesn't say the smallest, but they're the ones that are working through the governments and politics. Interplay between nations is relatively small in number. So the third group are the work through the commercial relations in the business world through the use of money, the concretization of prana, or universal energy, and the outer symbol of the universal flux and flow. These thoughts are suggestive, but not vital, dealing as they do with the cosmic tendencies. So, yeah, they kind of jumbled it all in the same paragraph, though, so it can.
So China, an interesting note there is China is said to be a first ray country.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no manipulation going on.
There's others too. There's others that are in that, major players that are involved in there. But they want to rule the world. First rate, right. They're demonstrating the will aspect.
And they want to be a destroyer of souls, as the first ray aspirant who fails to overcome his dweller may become a destroyer of souls.
They want to rule. Yeah,
and the prototype of the first ray is the devil. So how about that? So yeah, there's a lot packed in here.
Give you what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. And that, there's a lot packed in there. And you hit it right there at the end there with the first, second, and third groups. That's it's just so interesting to be able to see that. So anybody who's reading this, and this is great for like literally every human being should read this.
Right.
And question whether how they feel about those things. How they see this thing happening, and whether these things are good. You have a lot of people out there that are just fully immersed in the accumulation of possessions and money, and you can kind of see personalities in there a little bit too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, again, not here to judge anybody on that. People are going to work through this in their way when they're ready to work through it. But you can absolutely see the different personalities that kind of are associated with that, because they'll almost try to sell it to a wider audience, as in this is what you should be working to attain type of stuff. Yeah. It really isn't.
Well, they have the power to get people to
and the influence, because people that want to like hang back and be kept.
Oh man,
I just was thinking, keep them down of all of the physical world desires and wants. And they see these people successful with that and attaining a lot of it, and they're like, well, I want that too. So they have a lot of influence and power behind that. So people like us have a huge mission ahead of us to help shift the minds to get on the right track there.
Well, check this out though. Just like the three planes, the three lower planes, you have the higher reflection, which is the first, second, and third ray, right? Or the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, or however you want to look at those just things. They work together to create the one. Right? So you can't have one aspect of this without the other. They're all working in conjunction with each other to create this whole that this humanity that we're looking at. Because if politics were different, you wouldn't have the manipulation in the other places. And
Right.
then back and forth, they're giving each other this power and playing off of that lower nature of the whole thing in perfect accord, chords too. Very wild. But that's how, that's just a reflection of how, it can also be good when they're all, imagine if they're all working and when they're working in conjunction together for the betterment.
Right.
How beautiful of a place this could potentially be.
Right.
Or the kingdom of heaven would be. Anyway, yeah, that's deep. So what do you want to do now?
I think this is a good place to break for the week.
Okay.
That was a lot to take in. We can pick up next week with the cyclic ebb and flow and close out Rule 8. But I
Okay.
think we had a lot of good discussion behind this because, yeah, as I indicated in the beginning of this rule, a lot in here. And let me just backtrack real quick. For the average student, this is the most important rule in the book from the standpoint of the average student, which
And
many of us,
that makes perfect sense, sir.
yeah. So it's good that we spend a little bit more time here. I know I'm probably going to read over this again this week. I'll probably reference some of the Michael Robbins material on the Moria Federation YouTube page that you mentioned to get a better clarity of it. But yeah, there's definitely a lot packed in here.
And just real quick, as I'm just looking over here, this battle must be fought out here, and the ultimate coming from that it decides one of those three things that we discussed in the beginning. Right? Whether the soul will in any one life be the dominant factor in the personality from henceforth be the servant of the soul, whether the astral plane is no longer the plane of illusion, but can become a field of service, or whether the man can become an active cooperator with the hierarchy, able to create and wield mental matter and so on. Or, you could, like he had said earlier, not attain any more growth. Right? He did say that earlier, right?
Yeah.
That's tough. So, nobody likes those things, So if you don't get it under control and you lose, this is a critical stage for all of it.
Right. And I think it goes back a bit, just hearing you say that, it kind of brings me back a little bit to Rule 7, where he was talking about treading the razor's edge path, which is the middle path, the path that all of us are on. And you can go one way or the other, but if you don't deal with this, you're not going to grow. Right. Because eventually where you want to be heading is, well, hopefully, I know where I'm trying to head is the path of right activity versus the left-hand path, the path of white magic versus black magic, the path of selflessness versus selfishness. So a lot in here, man. Yeah. I wish more people, well, I shouldn't say that. Everyone eventually will open their eyes to this. And like I said, it might not happen this lifetime. Some might need a few more. But I know that each day as I grow, all of this becomes much more vivid for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. More synthesized and assimilated, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, buddy.
So, all right. Until next week. Yeah, we'll pick up the rest of Rule 8 and have some more good discussion behind it.
All right. That sounds good. See you next week.
See ya.